I know I'm probably gonna have to bring it up just because it's an amazing wall of Funko Pops behind you. So that
Oh,
might get brought up at some point. Like that is
yeah,
that is
thank you.
killer, dude. That is
I,
amazing.
I I knew it was gonna happen, but I was thinking about blurring my background, but having never used Zoom before.
I'm so happy you have never used Zoom and didn't figure that out. Because I gotta say that's probably like out of everyone I've talked to, it's probably one of the coolest rooms I've seen
Well,
in a
thank
long
you.
time. Because like most people are either like in like their little practice space or something, and they usually just have as musicians just have guitars on the wall. Because why
Yeah.
would you do anything else? But it's cool to see all the Funko Pops. I dig it.
Yeah, this is like my nerd room. My wife relegates me to down here.
All right,
Interesting.
in three, two, one. Welcome to the Beers with Bands podcast with your host, Michael Torres. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Beers with Bands. This week, I'm sitting down with the band The Sinner and the Saint. How are y'all doing?
Doing good. Doing good. I think.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm doing great, dog.
Sweet. For people that might not know, The Sinner and the Saint is like an emo, pop punk. Some new stuff is gets kind of punky in there. From Green Bay, Wisconsin. Like I think you guys. Well, I mean, we'll get to that in just a second. But I mean, you guys have some killer stuff out, and we'll talk all about it. But before we get too far, can you kind of go around and say who you are and what you do in The Sinner and the Saint?
My name's Brant. I am the rhythm guitarist, and I also write a lot of the lyrics for the band.
And the singer.
Yeah, I'm the singer. Yeah. Well, I mean, like 90% of the time, I'm singing on stuff. So,
I'm Nick. I play bass for the band, and I do backup vocals and some lead vocals as well.
Okay.
And I'm Natalie. I play keyboard for the band. I also play some tambourine for the band, and I sing on a few songs.
For people that are just now finding the Sinner and the Saint, I think the first EP, Okayish, came out in 2019, and then you followed it up. Well, I guess was lengthwise probably closer to an LP on that one, but we're not going to get into the whole LP.
Yeah.
Too much of a discourse on that one, honestly.
It was.
Twitter had that discourse a few weeks ago. We'll let it stay there.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a good time. The second album, came out in 2022 called Sad Ish. For people that are have not listened to those, please go back and listen to those. Some great tunes throughout. I gotta say, I listened to all like through everything today, just to kind of get the feel for the whole aspect of the Sinner of the Saint. And Lemon Seltzer Water is a killer song, but Sads Mickelson too to end off that album, perfect.
Cool.
And I gotta say, like the song title choices that I see throughout, just bringing it back to those emo roots. I loved it.
Yeah, that a lot of those titles come from either the song was too sad, so we wanted to make people laugh about like the lyrics and stuff like that, or we just had like some silly message that we sent to each other. We were like, all right, let's just name it something silly. So
now, when you guys like send like funny titles back and forth to each other, do they end up on like a giant like iPhone notes list of just like, hey, these are potential songs for some point?
We actually have the sorry.
Yeah. No, you go ahead.
We have a big old Google Doc with a bunch of silly names, and yeah, that's where we keep all of the ideas and things.
Okay. Well, I'm very. Are there any's, and not to give away like possible future ones, but are there ones that haven't made the cut that aren't going to be on anything future that you know of as right now?
I think I was trying to look for the list real quick, because we do have a significant amount, but we had a bunch of different variations on the whole like sad thing, because we have Sads Mickelson on EP2, and then we have Daniel Sadcliffe on the first one. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but there might be one more. but we have a lot of those. And then yeah, we just kind of every now and then we just message the band chat and we're just like, hey, funny name for a title, and then it just ends up becoming like either it builds into something more or we just use it and we're like, we don't know what to call this song. Let's just, use one of the funny ones. Why not?
It's also nice that for people, I know we haven't talked about it yet, but there are obviously there's three of you sitting here, but there are two more members, so you are a five piece. So you have five heads coming up with funny titles or just random thoughts, and I'm sure that list is just insane, and there's a reason for it where it's different when it's just like one person trying to come up with everything on their own.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think.
Speaking,
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
sorry.
Nope.
No, I was just gonna say. I think. Yeah, a lot of that comes from just like Brant and I have known each other for over a decade, and we just have the stupidest conversations and callbacks to like high school and stuff that we just think like, hey, this inside joke might be a funny song title, and that's I don't know. Same with Tom, our drummer and producer. We've known him for a very long time, and just stupid callbacks make it so funny.
I thank you for bringing up Tom. Like you said, he plays drums, and then we are missing one other member. Who are they, and what do they do in the Sinner and the Saint?
Slater is our guitar player. Yeah, he shreds on guitar. That's his main thing.
Okay. As I normally say for the members that aren't here and able to be with us for this episode, this is where we kind of pour one out in their honor. By pour one out, I just mean we have a drink in their honor.
I will drink to that.
Yeah.
But like I said, Sadish came out in 2022. Since then, y'all been decently busy behind the scenes, cooking up some stuff. Let me get my list back out here. One cool thing you did recently is semi-recently, depending on when this episode came out and depending on where you are relative to time. Back in December, you released a Christmas song, which I was talking to someone else, a few months ago, probably like a month ago, but I felt like 2023 was like this really cool year where just everybody put out a Christmas song, and it was nice to see because I've had friends do some here and there, but I mean, y'all put one out. I had like three different homies in Iowa put one out. I'm blanking on everyone else that put one out, but it was just so many like good DIY like emo and pop punk Christmas songs that came out that like I saw new playlists getting created. I'm just like, hey, like check out all these and just go from here. What kind of sparked the idea to do a Christmas song for that season?
So we actually got asked to do for charity. There was a charity in I think it was based in Wisconsin. They were doing a bunch of bands wanted to do Christmas songs for it, and it was either you'd do a cover or you'd write something completely original. And we were just kind of messing around, like writing the new stuff for our new music. And Nick came up with a really cool bass part. And we were like, well, we want to use it, but we weren't sure where to use it at that point. And we were just like, yeah, let's just try that. And I started writing lyrics over what he wrote. And then it just kind of turned into this thing where we were like, all right, I guess we're writing an original Christmas song. And Tom was like, hey, can we do something weird like towards the end there, like where it completely changes like key and it does a bunch of weird stuff. And then it was inspiring because we asked Tom and I's old jazz college professor, and we're like, hey, do you want to play trumpet on this? And he's just like, yeah, I'll do it. So I guess he got drunk one night and just started playing trumpet, and
Sounds about
he
right.
he recorded the solo for the end of that, and we were just like, wow, this is like a legitimate like Christmas tune. It's not bad. So
That's very amazing that he got drunk and then recorded it all. I feel like that's a good way to add it to a song.
he's a jazz professor, so I assume that's just what they do. Like they
Yeah.
just get drunk and then they record music. That's what.
Uh, but like I've said this before too, is the use of horns in songs, when done properly, it adds so much to it. So like if someone brings in a horn, and like if you would have used it throughout the entire song, it would have just been like another horn in the song.
Mm.
Whereas like using it at the like towards the end to bring like this whole like almost like ballad moment to finish off the song just makes that whole like ending like crescendo and just be amazing. And that's the shit that I love.
Oh yeah, it was very fun to hear what, because we didn't give him any notes. We were just like, hey, could you want to just improv over this? And he's just like, all right, cool. And it turned out to be like a really like big moment for the whole song. Like the beginning part was like a little slow and like chill, and then that ending bit was just really fun to see how it turned out. So
Yeah, I think that the solo added a lot to the piece for sure.
And then since then, you have released another single, um, which was called Dance Floor. I think it came out in like beginning of February, which is a fun, groovy song. I know we recently passed Valentine's Day. I loved the little Valentine's card that you guys have on the Instagram to go along with it. It's just a great little tune. Like, what was it like that being the first, besides like the Christmas song, the next original piece since the last EP to come out?
I think when we came up with that song, we were actually writing that song when EP2 was also being written. But I think Dance Floor just didn't fit. Like EP2 is very like, kind of bare bones, like acoustic, it's got a lot of interesting parts like that. And um Dance Floor was being written, and it just felt so different. We were like, okay, well, we have this other song that we wrote during the EP1 days, um, that's not out yet, that will be out. And we were like, well, it kind of fits that vibe. So we started writing songs kind of based on that whole vibe. And that's what eventually led up to, we were like Dance Floor and that other song, and then a couple other songs were kind of like this basis for what we were doing with everything else. So
Okay.
it was really cool to just kind of see, because it was so different compared to what we did on EP2. But I feel like it combines EP1 and EP2 in a way that it just mashes them together and makes what we are currently doing. So
Now, like I've always said, every release is definitely a timestamp in like that band's life, like where they are in that moment. Obviously, like we mentioned, their first EP came out in 2019, then 2022. A lot of things happened. We went through a whole pandemic. We went through a whole lockdown. Things change. With Dance Floor, do you see this kind of being uh, the route that the Sin of the State plans on going? I know that there's other songs that are kind of being tied in, but future wise, do you see that direction happening?
I think uh, something that we've kind of found our niche in is like taking different aspects of different genres of music and kind of blending them into the emo pop punk genre. So like Dance Floor, we kind of added a little bit of groove, a little bit of funk, and some of the other songs on the album are gonna kind of blend some other genres of music. I don't want to spoil too much, but I think that's not necessarily the total direction we're going, but we're trying to incorporate a lot of other aspects of music and really make just some unique sounding songs.
I feel like that's a good way to put it, because if I didn't say it before, I do want to say thank you for sending, the singles over, so or at least some of this new album, uh, that I could check it out. And when I'm blanking on names. So when Nick says that like there's a good amalgamation of different genres and everything on this upcoming album, that is no lie. And the nice thing is, on my part, I probably listened to them out of order that they would be
yeah,
on this album, which is
Eh,
okay. But I could feel the heart of it at the end of the day, where as I was going song to song, seeing the different genre elements throughout, uh, it still was like this cohesiveness where it's a big aspect to be able to do that. Is you know if you can do an album that sounds one spectrum and be that, and that's fine. If you do one that has all these different elements that kind of bounce around throughout the album, you have to do it just almost like in the right way. Otherwise, it just becomes like a collection of just songs at the end of the day, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like when we were working on these songs and when we started realizing, oh, we do a lot of different genre switches up in these songs, part of my fear was like, is it going to lack that cohesiveness? But I think um when we were working on it, like the whole basis of what we're writing is still the same. It's like that core, like every song is kind of written in a similar way to where I feel like even when we go and take these weird routes of like, funk or, doo-wop or whatever we throw in there, it kind of it still blends together. And it's nice that we can just kind of make music that we're having fun with. And, you know, we're not sticking to like, oh, you have to write this exact same way for every single song. Um, Granted, a lot of my writing, like my vocal and lyric writing, ends up being, similar throughout, but I think that also like kind of blends it all together and like glues everything together.
Yeah, 100%. It like I said, going from like dance floor into everything, excuse me, because like I listened to both like first albums and then listen to dance floor, listen to obviously the Christmas song in there because I had to add it to the list. Like there was that nice transition, and it didn't feel like. And I bring this up every once in a while just because it's such a dramatic change, but I don't. I never mean it in any harm, but like doing switching up genres in a way that like the band 100th did, where they went from like, almost hardcore metalcore to completely like shoegaze uh between albums. That's like a complete 180 where it's difficult to do, but doing this shift how y'all are doing it where it's just like all flows together, and then obviously, like you kind of said, your writing style and your vocal style kind of are the same throughout, which really ties it all back in together, and it just makes it work so well.
Thank you. I'll say it for Brant, but I think another thing that kind of changed on this album was that Brant really pushed Natalie and I to uh, take the lead a little bit more, and I won't spoil what the song is or anything, but Natalie's taking lead on one of the songs here. I took Chaser and Growing Old in the past, but I also have a couple of my own songs here, and that's really exciting because I think both of us, or I guess the three of us, come from similar but different upbringings on music, different kind of genres that we've all listened to. So not only kind of taking our style and adding our own into it, but incorporating, like I said before, all the other genres that we are trying to just kind of have fun with.
Yeah, I think it's been really cool. Like I definitely was really excited to be able to contribute to like some of the writing like with the album that's coming out. Like, obviously like no spoilers, but like I do have a song on there that I wrote, which is like the first one that I've done officially for The Sinner and the Saint, which is really it's a proud moment for me for sure. So yeah, being able to like contribute in that way, and the way that like we're all contributing like our different like music like styles and backgrounds. Like I think each one of us from The Sinner and the Saint has a really like different like musical background. Like, like um a couple of like folks like went to school for music, and then like others like maybe got lessons, or like were like grew up like doing it independently and like taught they're self-taught and everything like that. So, and we all each have like our own different styles of music and genres of music that we enjoy. So I think that we bring different backgrounds and different genres, and we like all of our different experiences with music kind of comes together, and yeah, just kind of helps us create like that uniqueness of sound that we've been developing for the past few years. So I think it's cool.
Now with like we've kind of mentioned, like the three of you have all these different backgrounds coming in, especially like with singing on each, like on different songs and stuff like that. Like where what are some of the like the major influences that kind of bring out your vocal style to bring it into the limelight?
I know I'm a big fan of Weezer. And I'm a big fan of modern baseball bands of I wouldn't necessarily say that they're bad singers. But the way that they sing and the way that they write is very personal, and a lot of uh a lot of that stuff influenced me, at least based on how I've been writing songs for the band, where it's like it's very much a focus on like self-reflection, and it really, again, it helps tie everything together because all these songs are genuinely about real situations for the most part. um where it just kind of, I feel like it ends up being more personal at the end of the day when we do write that kind of stuff. And the vocal, parts, like I said, with Nick and Natalie doing vocals on some songs and stuff like that, it reinforces my vocals because I've never really been confident with singing, which is weird because I sing 90% of the song. But uh because I've never been confident with that, I feel like it lends itself to a sort of particular sound. Those emo bands that, maybe you aren't thinking of the vocals as very good, but like the bands that are influential in the way that the lyrics speak the loudest compared to the actual vocals. So I think having Nick and Natalie back me up on some stuff, or Nick taking the focal point and Natalie backing him up, or me backing Nick up, or any which way combo that we do it, it ends up sounding really genuine, and overall it just ends up like being this own kind of personal thing for each song that we put out. So
And Nick or Natalie, I guess same question to you as well.
Okay, I
Take it
mean, my
away.
biggest influence is Fall Out Boy, like straight up. They're like my favorite band of all time. I love them so much. I got a tattoo of them. Like, I don't know, just like the inflection in like Patrick Stump's voice, like when he sings, I think you can like tell like there's a lot of that in the way that I sing as well. Like there is one specific song on the project that we have coming up, Brant, when I showed you that like vocal the first time, like you were like, oh yeah, like I can definitely hear like some of that in like the way that like the pitch like changes and stuff like that. So I feel like you can definitely hear that in my voice. And like I also, Paramore is one of my favorite bands of all time. Like I look up to them a lot. Obviously, like Hayley Williams is just an incredible female vocalist, and so like I really look up to her in that regard. And so yeah, that's where I get like my like vocals from. Like that's definitely where that influence comes from. And then as far as my key parts, like I mean, I feel like some of those as well, like just some of the like melodic like things that I like pick out like with my vocals, I feel like translates into the key parts that I write. Like I feel like I like hear very melodic things that like you can do with vocals and stuff, and that is kind of like the style which I write like my key parts for. So or write them in, excuse me, but yeah.
And I guess it's kind of a weird contrast for me, but two of my favorite bands are the Wonder Years and 4 Years Strong, and I think it's kind of weird because 4 Years Strong is usually this upbeat and kind of just like forget you sort of music, um, whereas the Wonder Years is very like the lyrics are so like grounded and down to earth, but also like emotional. And Dan Campbell just paints such a vivid picture, and I try to kind of um, do what I can to kind of copy that. Like Chaser, which came out on Sadish, was a huge or was heavily influenced by the Wonder Years, and not intentionally naming the song Chaser after their song Chaser, but that's how the lyrics turned out. So, um, but it's hard to kind of take that from bass and bringing it into uh, like the song, because I'm not generally the overtone of the song, but I've written a couple of the guitar parts for the band and kind of uh, taken the lead on a few of those things to try to influence them in that way a little bit. Or like, hey, what if we did something like this to um, kind of get some of those different emo, or I guess beat core like 4 Years Strong melodies in there. But I try not to push it too far that way, because that's not really the area that we're in.
No, yeah, it's always fun to see like what the influences are. You know, I think I've talked to a few people. Granted, like they might just play guitar or like just do like instrumentals in a band, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, like my biggest influence is like just like some crazy like hardcore band, but they play just pop punk," and it's like like it's cool to hear that and then like try and pinpoint where like that shines through, where like they just have a crazy breakdown in like a pop punk song for like no reason. It's like, oh, okay, like that makes a lot more sense now. Which, you know, not to give anything too much away, if there is something similar coming up in this album, you know, we're all about like just hinting right now, but
Yeah, yeah.
I need
which
the
everyone should be
spoiler
prepared
tag
for.
across the
Yeah, a
screen.
bunch of spoilers. Um, but like from the songs that I've heard, because I think I was sent 6, and I don't know how many more are on here. Which that's okay. We can leave that up to the people that'll find out when, you know, everything drops. But like from what I've heard, I'm really stoked on it. Um, and to see just where the rest of this goes. I know you're still kind of like in the early stages from when you sent it to me, and you know, I'm just really, like I said, stoked to see what it all turns out to be like in the final product and go from there. I know we've kind of bounced around on that and kind of tiptoed around everything, um, and I can cut this too if needed. But uh, you know, we have okay-ish, sad-ish. What do we got for?
So
Uh,
so the album doesn't actually follow the same trend with the ish. I think
okay,
maybe that'll kind of be our EP trend if we put out another shorter style uh thing. But I guess the title of the album is I'm Home Whenever.
okay.
Hence all the you know the tour related stuff with home is where your friends are, the real estate partnership with the Real Estate Historical Society, all of that good stuff is kind of tying into the album theme.
And then there's also the playlist too. I think it's songs for when you're feeling at home or something.
Yeah, the Sinner and the Saints songs to help you feel at home.
Yep.
And yeah, that's just a bunch of albums that we're gonna actually talk about those with the Real Estate Historical Society thing that we got going on. And it's all album covers that have houses on them because we were very much, I mean, the theme of the album is home. So it was kind of this thing that we wanted to kind of correlate everything kind of together with, you know, the home theming and, you know, just because I feel like the phrase "I'm home whenever" can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I think if you listen to the songs, you can kind of pinpoint like, oh, hey, this makes sense why it's called this, because even when the songs kind of go drastically in a random genre direction or whatever, uh you can still see kind of like at the core of like, oh yeah, this is about home in some way. So um yeah.
And then, you know, I love that you brought up, because it was in my notes, so this makes it easy for me to talk about it. The Real Estate Historical Society, for people that have checked out, you know, that Twitter, you know, they normally post like, this is Lincoln's home, or like just historical like places. And then it was, I feel like, you know, around the end of the year, start of this year, there started being some more like emo stuff. Y'all have partnered up with them, like you said, to kind of do this whole showcase of emo homes. How did this partnership come about? Like, I feel like this is very out of left field. So I'm very curious about this.
Yeah, so basically and it could be on the record that we have worked with this. They basically reached out and we were like, hey, we could do this weird thing because like everybody knows the American Football House. Like
Yep.
everybody knows like the Home is Warehouse. You know, people know the Charmer House, stuff like that. Our friends Tiny Voices, their first release, Airport and Reaper, um, literally had a house on it. And it was kind of like this idea of, well, we had the idea of the whole title, I'm Home Whenever. And we were kind of like, well, okay, real estate, this makes sense. Like all of this really is kind of like a thing. And I guess depending on I don't I don't know if I should say on the record, depending on when this podcast comes out, um that business actually doesn't exist. So so spoiler. Um so the business we created is I've been using that account for the past few months, and I've been trying to post like a boomer, like a 50-year-old, like, you know, trying to run a Twitter account. And uh I think it's, you know, so far it's kind of worked because we have no followers. But uh it was one of those things where it was just kind of like this spur of the moment idea where I was just like, how can we tie this all together with the title of the album? And um like I said, I think if we're based on when we're revealing this stuff, this podcast should be out after like it's kind of all like, you know, fallen apart. Um, but the idea was to basically just tie the album art and tie the title of the album with this basically like mini ARG kind of thing. Um, like kind of like a creepy pasta in a way, in the sense of like, you know, the back rooms and stuff like that, where it's, you know, it's not real, but like there's some intriguing like stuff that's happening. So all the stuff that we post is basically going to follow this format of, oh, what if the Sinner and the Saint worked with a corporation of sorts, that maybe there was some shady stuff going on, and maybe that led ultimately to what happened to either the band as kind of like a, you know, secret story kind of thing. But it just kind of like a creative, it's mainly a creative outlet just to do something a little weird. And it's our first album release, and we're doing this all DIY. So doing something very weird and PR related would, you know, be something cool that we could try doing. So yeah, the company doesn't exist. So
I love that because like I also didn't dig too far into that like company. I just saw like, you know, I scrolled to when they were like the last like were posted, like the Twitter was still posting like those historical things, because you know there are Twitter accounts out there that like legitly do just like, I think there's one that like randomly every day it'll just post like a different, about like a different city every day throughout the
yeah.
US. And so I just assumed it was something like that, and I was like, how does this tie in? But now this is like, in my mind, I know we're recording and we're in like the early stages of all of this. It's now like going to be like up on this list where like Hot Mulligan did that whole like, hey, our account got hacked, and then like there was the milk thing,
Dude.
and like it's like almost on that same level. Like this is genius marketing.
Yeah, I feel like, and I'm working with Natalie on a lot of the weird like writing and stuff. Um and you know, there's hints about like all sorts of stuff within what we've been doing. And like I said, with the character, that little house character that Nick drew, he actually drew that little house guy that was on the poster for our hope, home is where your friends are.
Mm.
And so like all this stuff has basically just been tying into this big thing, and we just kind of wanted to just be a little weird with it, because at least I'm not a marketing person, and but I've seen like how creative people can be with multimedia. And it was like, all right, well, you know, I got basic YouTube editing skills, and you know, I got, you know, Natalie knows how to write really well. And um you know, the other stuff that we're working on for like the album art, like Nick has been helping with that because he was an art major, like he's, you know, painting and like sculpting and stuff like that. And all of that stuff has just been culminating in like us just basically racking our brains and putting our artistic ability together to come up with this like really weird, just I don't even know if it's marketing necessarily, but it's something like, and it's just something fun that I think once people like, if people enjoy the album and if people listen, they're gonna be like, oh shit, that's cool. Like, all of this stuff kind of ties in. So
And like, was it originally your thought, or whose original thought was that? And like, what was everyone else's thought when that got brought to the table?
so it was mine, and I think I brought it up, and I think I brought it up to Nick first, and I think his first word was like, what? And I legitimately think I told him about it, and he was like, I think he said what, and he's like, I mean, we could maybe do that. And then I just kind of ran with him saying maybe we can do that. And I just started like showing them this stuff, and they were like, "Oh no, that's okay. That could be something." And like I said, when I brought it up to Natalie, like she has pretty like really solid writing skills, and in accordance to me, where I babble on a lot. Um, but it was just kind of like this thing where we were like, all right, let's do something weird, and I think everybody was like, yeah, we're on board for it, whatever.
I can
And
definitely attest to the slight confusion at first, but I think it's been like a really cool thing like that we've come up with, and like it's fun right now that like nobody knows that it's just us like being kind of silly with it. But I think like it helps, like it's kind of highlighting like other past influences that like have like had like houses on their things. Like it's a testament to like that, just kind of like that idea like behind like the home or whatever, like through like Midwest emo and like other like similar types of music and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't know, I just think it's a really fun idea. I'm glad we rolled with it.
I'm
I
really
feel
stoked to see what other houses are out there, because obviously, like we mentioned, the American Football House, Charmer House. I know we just said another one, and I completely blanked on it already. Uh, but I'm really stoked to see what else is out there that I don't remember that has also had houses featured.
It's surprising. Like I went to Twitter and I asked some Twitter mutuals. Shout out to like Elliot, and shout out to like Arthur and a couple other people that helped us with like curating like that playlist, because a lot of the albums on there have houses on them. Um, and I was surprised. I kept getting answers. Like people kept sending me more, and people would send me a list of like 10 or 12, and I'm like, how many of these bands were like, yeah, a house seems like the perfect aesthetic for an emo album. And I was looking, and I kept finding more, and uh my my girlfriend found one, and like there was all sorts of just additions that were added to the list, and we played with some of the bands like last year that had houses on their albums. So it's like it's a very small world with how many bands have houses on their albums. I just don't know. I don't know if it was just because American football did it, or like it just became like the aesthetic thing. Like, I don't know.
Well, everyone, if you're interested to see what more emo albums or albums in general that have houses, make sure you hit that playlist. We'll talk links again here in a little bit, and just go back and relive this entire real estate historical society amalgamation. Like, I get to now live it in real time and understand what's happening. Uh, so I'm super stoked on that. Like, that's such a good ploy by the three of you, including the other two that are here. So I'm really stoked on that. Like, that's a great way to do it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's been fun. It's been very weird also.
Uh, One other cool thing, and I don't know how pressing this was to do, um, since you took these promo photos when you announced like you were teaming up with Real Estate Historical Society, you said, "Hey, also add us to whatever album covers you want." So you all started with like you got added to the Weezer's Blue album, and then you also were in the infamous Ben Quad Alley on their album cover.
I didn't see
Uh,
that one.
Yeah, no,
Where is
I'll
that?
send it to you. I'll send it to
I
you
love
after.
that.
Yeah.
I love Ben Quad.
uh, is there any good spots that you still, or any album covers that you hope people add you to, or you want to see the Sin and the Saint on.
Personally, I think we should just have that picture added to every Weezer album. That's the colored Weezer albums. Just because, I mean, like I said, I was influenced so much by that, and the meme kind of came from some of our friends who are big Weezer fans as well. And uh yeah, just any of those albums where people are just kind of standing, like, you know, I'm cool with whatever like that. Obviously, the Weezer one is probably the easiest to edit because all it is a colored background.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Nick, do you have any?
Yeah, well, with the photos we took, I don't think it's realistic, but the Suburbia by the Wonder Years, just because
Oh,
they have the bird mascot and he's up on the roof drinking.
oh.
I just want to hang out, have a good time.
Oh, to be a bird on a roof drinking.
Exactly.
Hey,
The
we're in
dream.
our rooms drinking. It's fine.
Yeah, but
It's
we're
fine.
not birds.
Ugh, my roof's too sloped to hang out up there, so
I don't think my landlord would appreciate if I hung out on the roof.
Natalie, did you have any album covers you want to see the band on?
To sit on the Paramore couch.
Oh yeah,
From the
no, that'd be
first
good.
that like first album, to sit on that couch, I feel like would be iconic. Yeah, who knows where it is now, but yeah. I'm trying to think of like any other specific albums that I'm like, yeah, that would be cool. I don't. It's gonna come to me later, I'm sure, like a good one, but I can't think of like any others off the top of my head.
Hopefully, maybe we'll see those posted online and everyone can go find those. Then,
There you go.
you know, I know we talked kind of a little bit about the band. We tiptoed around this new album and getting everyone hyped for when it's release. But is there anything I might have missed between, you know, the album, The Sinner and the Saint, and everything else you have going on before we start to transition?
Um, Not really. I think a lot of what you touched on with all that stuff, like I said, the album is something that we're extremely proud of. Like even just the stuff that we sent to you, like obviously it's not finished, um, because Tom has so much work and God bless him for all the stuff that he's been doing. Like he basically traps himself in his room for like 8+ hours, like on days that he has off, and he just like fiddles with it, and he'll send us like 3 different versions in a day and be like, is that good, is that good, is that good? um because yeah, like he recorded, he's mixing it, he's mastering it all, he's adding any sort of effects that are needed, you know, all that stuff. And I if I were him, I'd probably start hating our music because of how many times he listens. Because he told us, I think even on the EPs, how many hours he put into it. I can't remember what he said, but it's crazy how much time goes into just an EP of like 6 songs. And um, for reference, this is not really a spoiler or anything, but we have 12 songs that is going onto the album. And sure, a couple of them are shorter, like, you know, and pretty straightforward, but still, like, doubling the amount of songs and having to go through all that is just nuts. So like we appreciate the hell out of him because I don't I don't know how he does it.
and I do want to throw in too, it's really been awesome to like see his growth as a producer, as an engineer, because um basically everything we've put out, he's recorded, mixed, mastered, with the exception of Growing Old, and then EP2 he didn't record but he mixed everything. And it, like, you can just tell from album to song to album, it's just been getting better and better and better, and um it's been so awesome to be able to work with him on everything that we have out.
Yeah, I second that. Tom's growth has been really cool to watch. Like, you know, like EP1 was really good and then EP2 was even better. So like it's getting us like really excited to see what is going to come up with like, you know, the entire LP. Like it's just going to be like some of his best work that we've seen, I'm sure. So I'm really excited to hear it once it's like all done.
I'm equally as excited. Shout out Tom for grinding and putting in that work, and dealing with your bandmates for it. Like props to you.
Cheers.
Dealing is definitely the right phrase. I was like,
I'll drink to that, or I would, but I'm out of beer right now, so gotta get
Well,
another.
speaking of beer, this is obviously Beers with Bands. As I normally say, you don't have to be drinking on these episodes because I will definitely do that for you. But I know the three of you have some beverages in front of you on this fine Wednesday night, except for Natalie because she finished hers. Um, but what's everyone drinking on this fine Wednesday?
I'm having a Red's Hard Apple Ale. I just kind of wanted something sweet and something easy that I could drink a lot of. So
I've been drinking this. Hope to get it in a good frame here. Sippin' Lemonade is this one. It's by Odell Brewing Company. It's like a craft sour. They have a tropical sour as well. I love them so much.
Um, I started drinking a little bit before we hopped on this podcast. I started with a Moon Man. From this is all New Glarus. I got their sampler pack, and so I started with the Moon Man. It's a pale ale. It was really good. And then for the crack it open at the beginning, I had a Spotted Cow for that. And now I've just started a two women lager. Again, this is all New Glarus, and this two women lager is really fucking good. Yeah, it's classic lager.
Oh yeah, and for this episode, y'all are from Green Bay. I had to get some good old Wisconsin beers on the episode.
Oh, hell yeah.
So obviously for the opening crack, I had a good old Hams.
Ooh.
All right.
Milwaukee Brewing.
Yep.
And thankfully, I can say this is on record because I have it through this video. But I drank my first Spotted Cow today.
Oh, hell yeah.
So this is my second one.
Represent.
Had to do it. For people that aren't in the Midwest, New Glarus Spotted Cow or all New Glarus beers are just Wisconsin based. So to be able to, for me in Minneapolis to have this, someone had to do some things.
It's kind of confusing too because New Glarus is a town in Wisconsin, but also a brewing company in Wisconsin. So it's, we're just happy to be here, I guess.
I will say, I know everyone loves Spotted Cow. I'm not hating on it. I'm not, but I will say I don't understand the full hype. Like there's people that like I feel will like kill over New Glarus, and I'm just like, it's okay.
Shit, I guess I'm gonna dip early.
I
It's
think
not like I would go for it, but like no, it's I don't know. I like New Glarus. I like a Spotted Cow very much.
It's smooth. It's good. I'm not like fully hating. I also drink a lot of PBR, so I shouldn't.
Oh yeah, I mean
I do
PBR
too.
is classic.
Let's go.
That's like my go-to cheap beer.
I do gotta say, like, I'm not a big fan of a lot of like craft beers that are heavier like that, and like so that's not to me. I I don't think I've had any New Glarus beer that I like. I tend to go for like very light, like sours that are only like 4% because it's got a lot more flavor to me. So that's just me. I'm in the wrong state, I guess. I don't know.
But it was great. I'm happy I got to share a New Glarus with y'all from Wisconsin. You're the only Wisconsin band I've done New Glarus with, so I don't know what that says about everyone else. But
thank you.
Yeah, of course, anytime. But now we're going to start to transition to the later half of this episode, which is always my favorite part of the episode. This is where we kind of talk about some fun stories from your time in music, whether shows, tours, time recording. As I normally say, they can be anything horrendous to tremendous or any adjective in between. Think about like the stories that you always reminisce about with your friends. Those are usually the best stories that everyone loves to hear. Not to put you on the spot, Natalie, but I know you might be taking off a little soon, so I want to make sure I get it in a story from
honestly,
Natalie.
I didn't know that this was what we were going to be talking about towards the end, and I love stories. I will sign up later for this. Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think. The first thing that like pops into my head is like the first show back that we played after COVID. Like I was generally a little bit anxious while I was there. I think because it was like one of the first huge events like after like coming back after having not done anything for like a while, at least to that scale. I I gave myself an entire sleeve of temporary tattoos for that show, and that like has a special place in my heart because I'm currently working on a full sleeve of real tattoos. So it's just like, yeah, that was a really fun, like specific moment. I also met like one of my best friends like now at that show, Ashley. Y'all know. Shout out to Ashley. They're one of our really cool fans. But yeah, I that show was just so much fun. I think it was like a really it was just such a gratifying feeling to know that we had like kind of made it through like the I mean, not to say that COVID is over or anything, but like the really difficult time of not being able to play live music. Like not being able to play live music for like a little over a year was really challenging. Like it's just something that like I've grown to enjoy so much, like just being able to hang with the group, meet new people, and like play music together. There's like nothing else that like can really replace it. And so like having a large period of time where we weren't doing that, and then like the first time back to be able to do that, it was really special, I think. And it was also at a venue that like no longer exists in Green Bay too. Like the RIP the Lyric Room. But yeah, it was that was a really cool experience, just like being able to see everybody again, hang out with our friends and stuff. And yeah, that was first one that came to mind when we were thinking about like past shows and stuff.
And that was a great show. I mean, because I think what was that, like May or June of 2021, and
It was like the
so
beginning of June.
it was like there was still that COVID scare a little bit, with all the other variants coming out, but the venue had a back outdoor porch that we were able to play on. So I think that alleviated some of the stress and allowed us to get a larger group of people out to that show and have a great time.
I love that like everyone like no one will forget the first show after like the main portion of the pandemic because like I moved during the pandemic to Minneapolis and I couldn't go out to any shows because obviously everything was canceled. So like the first show that I was able to go to was a patio show at like a local like dive bar that my friends were playing, and out on the patio, drinks were flowing. Nice day. It was a great time. Like I'll never forget that day.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy what an impact that was on eh, like the local music scene, like, and how uh, we kind of learned that we can't really take this for granted. Like we may not go anywhere uh, moving forward with the band, but we're always going to be able to go see that live music, hopefully, right? And it makes you really enjoy the scene, all the friends that you make, all the people that you meet. It makes that a lot more special.
I think yeah, that show back was something else. And we don't normally play too many outside shows too. And that was kind of a different experience for us even in that regard. But I know like with everything that happened, like we were a little worried over everything. We were like, because we were supposed to tour in 2020. Um
RIP.
yeah, we were supposed to tour actually in March. So I remember I was like, oh yeah, let's, we're getting going. And then we had a show in February and some of the bands had brought like cleaning wipes. Like, and we were like, something seems off. And I think at that point in time, we were in the process of like, well, we should probably just cancel this. And, just to be safe and, and I think there was at one point in time when we were recording and writing for EP2 that we were like, are we going to be able to do this again? Like, is this going to be something that we can do? And thankfully we were able to with that show coming back. Um, but yeah, just kind of a crazy time.
Yeah, I remember like so as I was moving, one of my soon to be roommates, he was like on tour and then, like everything kind of started shutting down. I think they were like in like either Portland or Seattle, so like the rest of their tour got canceled, so then they had to just come back and then he was, kind of laid off from his job, so he was just around the
Oh,
house and I wasn't supposed to see him for like the first month of living there because he was just supposed to be on a month long tour and I was like So we're hanging out every day now. What's going on?
Yeah, no,
It's
it was crazy. It was a crazy time.
I guess so. Yeah, that's one of the most depressing things I think that happened too. Is we spent, I mean, because I basically booked all of the shows for that tour. I spent so many hours just emailing places, emailing bands, venues, like promoters, uh, and to have to cancel that tour was like it kind of ripped my heart out a little bit. But but I guess no, that's the way it had to be. And I think it yeah, like I already went off about it, but it really, you can't take this stuff for granted. So
Yeah. I mean, if we're gonna talk about tour, then like, we had that tour planned in 2020 and it took us until 2024 to actually tour then. So like, no, I'm like just thinking about more shows and stuff. Like honestly, like this run of shows that we just did like earlier in February, like God, those are some of my favorite shows I think that we've like ever played. Like, I mean, there are definitely a handful of shows like in the past that like we've played that really stick out, but like I definitely think like for me, like the top ones that we played were like at X-Ray Arcade in Milwaukee and in Wausau. What was it the I don't remember the name of the place.
At New Moon we played, and then
So
we
we played at
played
New Moon
no,
and Oshkosh.
no,
at the
Those
Warehouse Collective.
they
I
were
think
all
the
really fun.
Yeah.
the Pollock Inn in
Yeah,
Wausau.
that's
Oh
okay.
yeah, yeah.
But I couldn't remember the name. But yeah, no, I really liked the X-Ray Arcade and the Pollock Inn. But yeah, I mean all of the shows that we played on that tour were really fun and really memorable. But yeah, those were definitely two of like my personal highlights for sure.
It was kind of crazy because like we started off, we were playing in a warehouse in Appleton, and we're playing with some of our like closest friends that we've made throughout the years. And it was a smaller crowd, but it was like there was a school bus that was painted blue and it had a waffle like hanging from it. There was like artistic pieces like behind us and stuff like that. It was really cool.
Like all
And
the
then we were like,
tapestries and stuff.
yeah, the tapestries and stuff. And then they were like, okay, cool. First time playing X-Ray then was the next day. And we played that show, and like solid crowd came out. Like everybody was out there. We got to hang out with Man Alive, who's made up of members of Nobody's Fault, who we did that little split with a while back. And um we played with Man Alive, and a band from Illinois, Colorado Ave was great, and Secondhand Souls, and that show was great. And then each show just kept getting like more like kind of crazy because like we played New Moon, and it's a cafe and the whole thing's packed,
Yeah.
and people were there. Like we played with Tiny Voices, who we've been playing with shows before they were like well known, because like
Since
now they're
2019, I think
yeah, since
we played their
2019.
first show, I think.
Dude, Kenny
Yeah.
Hoopla was at that show.
Yeah, Kenny Hoopla was at that show. He
Insane.
was just in Oshkosh, just hanging out. And so we played with them in Enswell, and that was nuts. And then Wausau at the Pollock Inn, we were like, okay, they set this show up literally like a week ago. They announced it like a week ago. Whatever happens, happens. And then I think the entire population of Wausau was there. It felt like
Yeah,
it legitimately
it was
felt like
insane.
everybody was there. And I just remember going like I was a little nervous at first because I was like, man, we just announced this like a week ago. Like it's gonna be a small show, but I mean, we're still gonna like go crazy and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, like people couldn't fit in the room that we were playing in. People were like outside of the room. Like it was a smaller room, but like the fact that it was packed and it was just sweaty, and it was like there was so much going on, and it was I was really surprised, and I was just like, wow, what an insane way to cap off this whole thing. Like
It was fucking electric in Wausau. Yeah, having never been there before, we didn't know what to expect, but the energy was just so incredible. And I know that's like this, that common thread when people are on tour, like, yeah, you're the best show of the tour and all that. But genuinely, Wausau was like, I think the best show of the tour.
it was nuts.
Yeah, Wausau was insane. I loved it.
We hope to be back at some point. Like that was a really great time. But yeah, no, that was that whole thing that kind of just it just got built up. We weren't sure we were originally supposed to be playing Stevens Point for the last day. And then somebody from Barely Civil was like, they messaged us and they were like, hey, if you need help finding a show for this thing, hit up our buddies in Wausau. And I was like, all right, whatever. And so we hit them up, and then this kind of happened. It just kind of culminated in this like really cool moment for the whole thing. So it was really cool.
Yeah, those moments are always the best. Where, especially when you're just like, okay, this show could be just terrible to end off this, and then it just blows up out of nowhere. I remember one time I think we were playing like Rapid City, South Dakota, or something like that, and we
All
were
right.
just like, okay, it's like a VFW hall. I mean, it's typical to play in as a DIY band. We're like, but we'll see what it's like. We get there, and there's just a bunch of like old heads just like at the bar, and we're like, let's see how this. And then that show like popped off. There was like 100 kids there, or something. I could be exaggerating that by a little bit, but like there was a good amount of kids that came out to that show, and like just went hard for like every band, and we were just like, okay, yeah, we probably should add this back to like every tour run that we do for any reason.
Yeah. No, it's crazy to think, because like how far we've come, and this kind of ties into it, like a story that I have. Um, Way back when we were a four piece, when Natalie was on guitar, and that was a while ago. Natalie was on guitar, and we had like just the four of us. We played a show with Arcadia Gray, and
I do remember that show. Was that
yeah,
also with Nosebleeds?
yeah, with
Yeah.
nosebleeds.
Yeah,
So it was
that Tuesday night,
nosebleeds.
that random Tuesday night at the Lyric Room, and
Yeah,
like there were like 12 people there.
yeah, there wasn't even that many people. It was literally, we played the show, and they accidentally double booked. They double booked a painting session before our show. So they had a bunch of like 30, 40-year-old people just like painting, like, and working with. And when we got there, the guy was like, oh, whoops. So then it was just us, Arcadia Gray, and Nosebleeds, and we were just like hanging out. And we didn't know Arcadia Gray at the time. Like we just like, heard them by proxy. Like I think they had just started I think they had just put out Konami Code. Um and we played that show with them, and literally I think it was just like a couple extra people and then the band's watching. And it was so it I felt bad, because I was like, man, they came to Green Bay. They were on tour, they came to Green Bay, and then this happens. And then fast forward to this past year, and we're playing another show with them that we haven't played since that awful show. I was like worried. I was like, and we got asked to play with them in Madison, and we played in a college like apartment that was like half outside, half inside, whatever. And it was really cool to see. And they've come so far since then. It's like since we played a show to like 5 people. And then like literally, like I think it was like 3 days later, it was Coachella in Ohio, where we got to play and we got to see them play. And they played with Ben Quad. They did their battle set, which was insane. And it's amazing to see like where we've come from since then, because like I said, when we were just a starting band, it was like pretty, we had a couple shows that were just like, okay, well, a couple people showed up, we'll still play our heart out. But you know it's definitely crazy to see how far that's come since then. So
I will say that's like one of my favorite things about doing this podcast is like I obviously get to sit down with people at different points in their band's career, and just to like, it's like we'll sit down today and to see where you guys are next year, like in the growth that everyone makes in that time is just amazing to see. Like since we mentioned Ben Quad a couple times, they've been on the podcast. I talked to them right after that EP came out, and then just where they are now is just insane. And just like I'm so happy for everyone that like I've gotten to interact with and like just talk to them and just showcase how humble and genuine everyone is, and like just talk about their music and like just watch them just fucking explode and just take off on this track. It's amazing.
When I saw that you had done the interview with Saturdays at Your Place, I was like, holy shit. Because literally I think they got added on to Coachella, and that was before they like blew up and
Mm.
they like got crazy. And then they were just on Coachella, and like everybody was there to see them for that. And just seeing them on the podcast, just like talking, like, just they just seem like chill people. And I was just like, holy crap, it really is crazy how much like things change even just a year's time.
Oh
Like
yeah.
for us too, like with the release of Dance Floor, we went from barely hitting like 100 monthly listeners to like 3K plus people listen to just Dance Floor alone, which, it's not like we're not famous or anything, but it's still crazy to see like how far along we've come since the beginning of, just like, oh, we're a local band that some people, come out to see in Green Bay, to, oh, like people kind of know who we are. We talked to uh Edgar from Ben Quad, Shredger. Um and it was crazy because he saw, like, we made an April Fool's post last year um about the record label that they were under, and uh he recognized when I said who we were, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you guys had the joke thing and stuff like that." And then yeah, I was like, "Yeah, no, I hope hopefully you didn't feel anything bad behind it." And he's like, "No." And then he said something nice about like some of our music, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is like the this is like the coolest thing ever," because they're kind of taking over and doing crazy stuff in the emo scene, and it meant a lot to hear something from somebody of a band that, um one, like, now I look up to, and two, like, that is just going so hard. And again, they kind of, they blew up out of nowhere almost, it seems, but rightfully so. They deserve every single bit that they get, so it's really cool.
I'm happy for everyone that comes on. Like I've said, not to like I love. I'm a fan of music and everything, but I really anyone that makes it onto the podcast. It's because I really enjoy their music and I love who they are and what they're doing. And I mean, like I said, obviously y'all are here. You're right up on that list. I'm really stoked to
Oh yeah.
see, where everything goes from here. I know we've kind of been talking tour stories, and we've kind of talked about like that past tour that just happened in February. But do you have any plans to do any other runs later this year after this album comes out?
Yeah, so we are planning another run that we're going to do, that's going to be a little bit more just out of Wisconsin. Um, nothing completely set in stone. We just kind of know where we want to be, and um, we know who we're going to be doing it with, which should be cool. Um, it's going to be in the latter half of the summer, so uh, thinking around July ish.
I mean, all right, sorry, this might be an editor's note here, but we could probably say it, and then maybe if nothing's announced at that point, we
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah,
redact
yeah.
it.
We're planning on doing a run with our friends Man Alive from Milwaukee, that we just played a show at X-Ray with. Um, and yeah, basically anywhere, if we end up playing a fest or two, that'd be great. We submitted our stuff to some fests, and we'd love to play them. Um, but yeah, just basically, whoever wants us, we'll go. We'll like we're not really worried about, like, at the end of the day, it ends up being about gas and maybe where we spend the night. But at the same time, it's just, we just like playing shows, and if we get the chance to play wherever, we'll take that chance, I think.
Hell yeah.
Well, everyone listening, if you have any connections with that any fest, make sure you get them over to your neck of the woods
Oh yeah.
and get to see them rip a set in person. But yeah, like I said, be ready for this album coming out. in later springtime, early summer. Be ready for it because it's killer. I seriously mean it. Where I every song sounded great, and I know that they're still in the early stages, so I'm stoked to see what Tom does to them and what they're like polished up.
Thanks
Um,
so much. Hell yeah.
yeah, but before I fully let the three of you go, I like to always end off these episodes on a very high note. Um, so my last question to the three of you is: from your time in The Sinner and the Saint, what has been your favorite moment that you've experienced so far?
From my perspective, it's just playing music with these guys. Like legitimately, we could put out the worst music and I'd still probably be happy. Just like just because it's been so rewarding, you know, playing with, these musicians that are all over the place in terms of, we all come from different backgrounds and stuff like that. And just playing shows has been just so rewarding. And I think just working with, each one of them has been hugely special in my heart. Just because it's so much fun. Like I said, if nobody listened, I'd still be happy because it's like we're playing music with, our friends, and we're having some drinks and we're getting to talk on this podcast. Like it's there's so much that we have here that I think is really just fucking amazing. Like it's cool. It's just really fun. So
Yeah, I've got a similar answer. Just like the playing shows. Like I love performing, and I think like performing live music is just like so it's something so special, and every show is unique. We're playing the same stuff with the same group, and I think like it's great for us to be able to like build that relationship with each other and be able to grow in that regard. But you meet so many new people too at every single show. You get to play with friends that you've played with before. You get to meet like so many new people and make new friends. And I think like just like that sense of like community that we build when we play live music together throughout like all of the shows that we've played over the last 5 years. Yeah, it's just something really special, especially like with the scene that we have up here in Green Bay. Like, I mean, I think we've made like a lot of like friends within our like local community here. Being able to travel and stuff and play with other folks is really cool too. So just yeah, the experience of being able to play live music with your friends and being able to like meet new people and stuff, that's just something that's been really special to me about this experience over the past 5 years.
Yeah, it's really hard to pin down one thing, but I've known Brant for a long time. I've known Tom for a long time. I mean, at this point I've known Natalie for a long time, but it's it's just been so awesome to see everybody's growth, and like not even just in the band, but like as people outside, and like just seeing everybody kind of I think we've all grown up a lot together and kind of really become ourselves, and it's just been a super special experience to be able like to be friends with all these people in the band. It's been so great.
it's fucking fun. It's just
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
I'm having a great time, man.
And at the end of the day, that's what you want. You don't
Yeah.
want your band to feel like a job. You want to have fun with your friends and just because also like bands that you can tell are having fun doing what they're doing, I feel like put out better music than like people that are just like, oh, we got to put out this single and like get it ready and going. It's just
I
like,
hope we don't get to that point, honestly. Like I don't want to be like one of those bands that like they feel like they have to put out every couple of years because as you've seen with our track record on what we put out, like it takes us a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, we put a lot forth, and especially Tom and now Slater, like who joined the band not that long ago, was it's just seeing that kind of stuff and being able to like work with it, and we're like, all right, it's done when it's done. We're gonna DIY the hell out of this, um and doing it with friends has been great because we can just kind of mess around and see what else happens with the music, and it's just been it's just been really rewarding, and meeting people outside of our scene too. Like Green Bay, like we have so many good friends. Appleton, we have so many good friends. And then, like I said, the people that we've met through Milwaukee bands, like, you know, Tiny Voices in Madison, or Man Alive in Milwaukee, or even the bands that we met when we went to Ohio, like that were so kind. I met Summer Brews, and they've kind of been an idol to me. And Mike helped me with my pedals because our lead guitarist couldn't make it. And like stuff like that, just like getting to meet these people and kind of form these kind of, not bonds per se, but like just knowing that we're all kind of going through the same thing. We're just at different points, and just kind of helping each other out it's just been cool. It's just been really cool.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing I love about this whole DIY emo scene that we have going on right now and that we're all living through, is everyone is just so in tune with everyone and like cool with everyone. The homie Will over at Football Meltdown said it best, like
Oh,
homies help homies. Just keep that alive, and I'm loving everything that's going on. One of these days I'll get to Coachella. I've said that multiple times. One of these days it'll happen.
hell yeah.
But if anyone's looking for the Sinner and Saint merch, music, or the band in general, where can they find it?
We got all of our stuff on, I think, every single streaming service for the most part.
Yep.
If you Google it, it will be there. If you want to look at some of our YouTube videos, I think YouTube has a new way of doing their thing. So I think it's youtube.com/at Sinner Saint. Yeah, the Sinner and the Saint. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we have merch, hopefully going to be up on Bandcamp again. We had to kind of go through that process.
We're working on shipping costs because it feels so shitty to charge almost as much for shipping as the merch costs,
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out a better way for that, but hopefully we'll have that up and good to go for people soon.
But otherwise, yeah, we're
All
we're
of our,
everywhere.
sorry, I was just gonna say all of our socials are at Sinner Saint WI.
Yeah,
So
just Center Saint WI. I think it's pretty easy to memorize. I'm glad we got that. But yeah, we're on everything, and merch, all that stuff, and look forward to us playing shows wherever we end up.
Well, depending on where you found this episode, whether it was Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, Threads, or YouTube, and you got to see their lovely faces like I did tonight, make sure you check the description down below. Hit those hyperlinks. Go follow the Sinner and the Saint on all the platforms. Be ready for this album to come out. Be ready for possible tours coming up. Be ready for everything in the future. LP3, LP, whatever. The next ish EP. See where it takes it. And just follow all of them. One very big thank you to Natalie, Nick, and Brant for taking the time out of their Wednesday to sit down with me and have a few beers and talk about the Sinner and the Saint. I really appreciate it. I
Thanks
can't
so
stress
much.
enough how great everything sounds, and I'm stoked for everything to come.
Hell yeah, thank you so much, for real.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, thank you for
same.
listening. Thank you for having us on. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was
course.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being down, and that's gonna end it for this episode, and I'll catch everyone on the next one. See ya.